What I usually do is every 3 days I usually change the dressing for cuts, for tears, for rips of my skin, um, for pressure sores, things like that. But with with these burns, then it seems to be more of the situation where you want to try and keep away infection. You don't want to have infection get into the area. Um, the first time, whenever I first changed the bandages, then I had put some oil emulsion, and I had been putting a mesh tape and an antibiotic ointment. All those things are bad. They cause the moisture. They cause the moisture to stay the in the burn area, and so you don't get it dry. It doesn't dry out that much. And what you want to do is you want to make it so that the burn that you have is able to dry out, is able to get dried out. Um, I so what I did after that was I started to instead uh, change the dressing every single day, but then just put a 2x2 gauze pad on it. And so I went, but another thing is that I went to um, the, I went to a few of the stores and I looked for gauze pads, and they're pretty darn expensive. Um, but I was trying to get the best deal, and I found out the best deal that I found was over at Safeway. But I think that the best deal, actually better than that, was a Walmart or Walgreens actually, because Safeway, what they have there is they have those gauze rolls. Now the gauze rolls are not thick, not very thick, and you need a gauze pad that's a little bit more thick. See, that's why I had to fold it over a few times before I applied it to the area. Um, if you noticed that, if you notice, the gauze pad definitely needs to be used on the burns that are still draining quite a bit. The first burn that I had um, bandaged up, it didn't have a very big drainage area. Um, I think that probably that drainage will probably be not showing up at all within a couple days. Hopefully by the next time I take this video, then it won't. There will be no drainage. And so but what I will still want to do is I will still want to put some kind of protection on it or some kind of covering. Uh, and what I figured was, why not use some toilet paper? I already have toilet paper around the house. We got a ton of toilet paper. But this gauze is kind of expensive and specific and stuff like that. You have to go out to the store and get it. And what if you don't have it? What if you have just toilet paper around? Well, it's okay to use toilet paper, on a wound. But the only bad thing about using toilet paper on a wound is that the toilet paper is fragile, or it can or um, very easily break up and very easily break apart and get stuck in your cuts or your wounds, and that is a breeding ground for bacteria because you got something that's a foreign material that is stuck in where your burn or your bruise is, and that's not a very good thing. Um, there is still a lot of drainage from the second wound, but it is decreasing a little bit. And actually, the wound, the bigger wound, remember the back wound was already busted, but the front wound, the front blister was not busted. Well, that has busted, so that that actually there was fluid that came out from that too, that applied to the gauze pads, and it was sucked up by the gauze pads. But if what you want to do with the gauze pads is you want to, you're still going to have to use a little bit of gauze pads, and in this case I did, um, but you want to fold it over so it just gives you like a thin layer. It's kind of like seeding, so you want to seed the area and give it an area, to some gauze to apply to, some gauze to dry out with, and then after that, then I put some toilet paper on top of that. I got 2 sheets of toilet paper, and I folded it over two times, and it then I put it on top of the gauze. So I applied the gauze to the burn, and then on top of the gauze, then I put the 2 sheets of the folded toilet paper on top of that. So it the reason why I put that toilet paper on there also is because I want it to be able to suck up the fluid that is coming from the drainage area. um, I think that the fluid actually is coming from the drainage area, and the reason why it is because during the day I'm sitting most of the time, and so the fluid actually builds up and puddles up into my feet. And so at night, whenever I lay down on my belly and I put my wheelchair cushion underneath my feet, then the fluid naturally flows back from my feet and back into the rest of back to my kidneys and stuff like that where I can piss it out. But on the way there, then what it does is some of that drainage uh, comes up to where the gauze, where my groin area is, where my gauze is, and then it leaks. Some of the fluid leaks out into onto the gauze, and in this situation it would leak out onto the gauze, but it would also leak out onto the toilet paper. I use the uh, tape that is stretchable tape. I use that, and it has perforations in it so it can breathe a little bit easier. And I'm using that tape as a guideline to cut along the. It has some lines on the back that I can cut along, and so I know that I'm cutting straight somewhat. So I'm pretty happy with it. Um, it's not too difficult, and the tape. Uh, the best way that I could get the tape to adhere to my skin and still see what I'm doing was if I put the tape on the gauze, and then the gauze on top of or then the toilet paper on top of the gauze, and if I apply that whole thing, if I apply it from the bottom of my leg upwards so that I can see the bottom of my leg, it's still going up, it's still coming. If I have the bandage on the bottom where I can see it, and then I slowly fold it up to my skin so that I can see where the bandage is going to be, where the gauze actually is going to be resting during during this time, during the day, um, until my next dressing change, which will be tomorrow. Um, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the dressing every single day. Um, I usually change it around noon, around lunchtime, every single day. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want an infection to get in there. And if I've gone back to the gauze that it was already on the wounds, and the gauze that I had removed from the day before, and it didn't smell. So the gauze actually, I am keeping the infection away from my burn, and that's one of the biggest things that's most important, because a second degree burn can turn into a third degree burn quite easily.